Hey folks, welcome back to Steve's View. Today we're diving deep into something that might look like another routine round of U.S. China trade talks, but trust me, it's anything but routine. While the headlines made it seem like another vague diplomatic meeting with no major outcome, there's a whole different story underneath. Why did the U.S. delegation suddenly look so confident after the talks in Sweden? Why did China rush to announce an extension of the trade truce, only for the U.S. to basically deny it? And what did U.S. negotiators mean when they said they got what we've been asking for over the past 5 years? Buckle up. This isn't just about tariffs anymore. It's about global power, economic leverage, and who's actually writing the rules of the 21st century economy. Let's start with the setting. The third round of high-level U.S.-China trade negotiations held quietly in Stockholm, Sweden. Now, if you read the press releases from both governments, you'd think they were talking about two completely different events. China's Ministry of Commerce described the talks as candid, in-depth, and constructive, and immediately announced that both sides agreed to extend the current tariff truce and keep talking. But then came the American response. And it was different. U.S. Chief Trade Negotiator Scott Bessent, someone who had been extremely cautious and tight-lipped in the previous rounds, showed up at a post-trip press briefing looking visibly upbeat. He didn't confirm a truce extension. He did say, with a smirk, that the U.S. had gotten a lot more out of this round than expected, and even claimed the talks had set new conditions for future engagement. So what gives? Why are both sides telling such different stories? The answer, it turns out, may have more to do with strategy than substance. Let's zoom out for a second. While Beijing was focused on the trade negotiations themselves, Washington was playing a broader geopolitical game. In the weeks leading up to the Stockholm talks, the U.S. had finalized key trade and industrial coordination deals with Japan, the EU, and even South Korea. These weren't just trade deals. They were alignment pacts focused on limiting the export of high-tech equipment to China, coordinating tariffs, and enforcing supply chain transparency. In short, the U.S. built a pressure cooker around China, a kind of economic containment. Beijing misread this moment. They assumed that Europe and Japan wouldn't go along with America's aggressive trade policy. But they were wrong. Not only did those allies sign up, they also began pushing similar measures of their own. Even Canada and Australia joined in with coordinated inspections and regulatory reviews on Chinese investments and exports. By the time Beijing sat down with Bessent's team in Sweden, the walls were already closing in. This explains Bessent's sudden confidence. He wasn't just negotiating as the representative of one country. He was, in a way, speaking for an entire bloc of advanced economies that had finally aligned on the China issue. So let's go back to that cryptic comment. We got things we've been asking for since 2018. What did that mean? While no official text was released, several things appear to have happened during those closed-door talks. 1. Energy imports transparency. U.S. officials had long accused China of skirting sanctions by importing oil and gas from Russia and Iran through indirect channels. Beijing seems to have agreed to more transparent reporting mechanisms, possibly under third-party oversight. 2. Industrial subsidy disclosures. One of Washington's biggest gripes has been the lack of clarity on how much the Chinese government subsidizes key industries like EVs, solar panels, and semiconductors. In Sweden, China reportedly agreed to a phased disclosure plan for certain sectors, starting later this year. 3. No new tariffs for 90 days, but conditional. While China declared a 90-day truce extension, U.S. negotiators didn't fully commit to it publicly because it's conditional. If China fails to implement these quiet concessions, the U.S. retains the right to reimpose tariffs unilaterally. 4. Cross-border data audits. There are unconfirmed but credible reports that China accepted third-party tech audits for companies operating internationally, especially those in sensitive sectors like AI and quantum computing. All of this would be a huge win for the U.S., especially considering none of it would require passing a single new law in Congress. It's regulatory power used surgically. Now, here's the kicker. Chinese state media didn't report any of this. They stuck to vague language about continued talks and maintaining dialogue. Why the radio silence? Simple. Admitting to these concessions, especially under international pressure, would be politically dangerous for Beijing. It would make Xi Jinping look weak at a time when his economic policies are already under fire from within the party. China is facing real headwinds. Youth unemployment is still sky high. Foreign direct investment is drying up. And the domestic real estate crisis keeps dragging the economy down. So instead of presenting these trade talks as what they really were, a strategic retreat, Beijing spun it as just another diplomatic discussion. For domestic consumption, it was all business as usual. But Washington knows better. And the confidence Besant showed, that came from knowing he had real leverage and that China had blinked. So what's next? This isn't just about tariffs and trade anymore. The U.S. China conflict is expanding to new fronts. 1. Russian oil and secondary sanctions. The U.S. Treasury is preparing a framework for secondary sanctions on entities, Chinese or otherwise, that facilitate Russia's energy trade. If China keeps buying under-the-table oil from Moscow, their companies could get hit with sanctions like Iran's did. 2. TikTok and tech escalation. Expect a renewed push to ban or force the sale of TikTok, and a broader crackdown on Chinese apps that collect user data. The talks in Sweden may have involved early warning notices to Chinese firms. 3. Taiwan Strait. Military analysts are buzzing about unusual troop movements and rumors of a Taiwan Strait transit operation later this year. Washington may use trade leverage to warn Beijing against any escalations here. Supply chain realignment. The CHIPS Act is only the beginning. The U.S. is pouring billions into onshoring critical industries, and it's actively encouraging allies to decouple supply chains from China wherever possible. All of this points to one thing: Washington has moved beyond managing China. It's now actively trying to reshape the global economic system to limit China's ability to dominate it. To wrap this up, let's be clear. This is no longer a tit-for-tat tariff battle. This is a full-blown strategic competition over who gets to write the rules for global commerce, technology, energy, and even geopolitics in the decades ahead. In Sweden, the U.S. may not have walked away with a headline-grabbing deal, but what it got was far more important: quiet structural wins, growing international consensus, and a clear signal that China is starting to feel the squeeze. This is a new phase of U.S.-China relations, and we'll be here to break it all down for you, one step at a time. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is the real endgame here? Thanks for watching. See you next time.